Welcome back to another episode of This American Negro. This American Negro is a show that aims to bridge academia and the hood. I think it's important to make our content a little bit more digestible when we think about this, like high-end stuff, also their academic work, because I need the niggas on the stoop to be able to know what's happening, as well as the academics who are doing the research on our communities as well. And so I want to move this show into more of a visual format for a lot of people, because I think it's going to be a little bit more engaging for me as we kind of change the way that we experience our audio experiences as well. But also podcasting in general, it's probably nice to see a face to a name sometimes. So that's why we're moving to much more of a visual format. Y'all already know, hello to niggas and niggas only. So the merch will be dropping again very soon. So the mugs are on hold, but they will be coming back in the fall with a little bit more expansive merch as well, which I'm so excited about. But you already know what it is, the hello to niggas and niggas only. Other than that, this is your host, Marquise Davon. Nice to see everybody. And today I am dead excited to interview this artist. I just discovered him probably like 2 weeks ago when he came up on my Tidal Rising type situation. So that drawing was real fire to see that like in my rotation. So this is Black Odyssey is the name, which I think is so dope. So we'll get into that name a little bit more, but I was just off rip like hella inspired when I listened to this album, like that opening track. First and foremost, I said, nah, this is about to hit different. Like it took me back to like feeling like in a jazz kind of feel to it, but I was also like introspective and feeling real meditative on as I was going through this experience. And I appreciate the intent behind this piece that you created, behind this entire album. I was like, nah, this to me is refreshing, but it was a different kind of socio-political aspect to it that I haven't heard from a younger artist in a certain kind of sense. And I think you did it with such responsibility. You did it with a certain level of craft from the artistic value of it, but then also the lyrical content, the visuals that you have put out, like, bruh, when we get into it, we're going to get into the entire thing, but I was just like hella inspired. It's like one of the first pieces in a long time that really had me like, oh, this shit is, yes, that's what this needs to be. So this is dope. So first and foremost, I just want to say thank you for sharing your talents and thank you for sharing your art with us, because that, wow, A1.
Man, appreciate it so much, bro. It's a blessing that you came across it, and it means a lot, the words, man. It means a lot, you know, that it's impacting people, and, you know, yeah, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. But there's only so much I can do to introduce you to my listeners and my platform. The first question I'm always going to ask is just, who are you? Like, take that question as you will, and then we'll get into the rest of the interview. Cool?
My name is Juwan. I'm originally from Jersey, so close to you up in Philly. And I've been working on music for probably about 5 years now. A lot of the stuff that goes into my music is just Black culture personified in different sort of like sounds and different sort of like genres. You know, I like to really blend a lot of different kind of sounds to create something new. A lot of the influences include like Kendrick Lamar, Biggie, in terms of like hip hop, Kendrick, Biggie, Outkast for sure is one of the big ones. But then it touches on, you know, more classic genres in the Black culture like jazz. And I really like Miles Davis and Mingus and Dizzy Gillespie and you know, all of the classic Black artists that sort of were like the foundation of what we do. I grew up in a city in New Jersey where Parliament Funkadelic was like founded in Plainfield, New Jersey. So that sort of psychedelia, which could be heard in the record, is very true to who I am and what I grew up on. So that's why we also touch on that sort of almost like rock aspect that you hear like Big Bad Wolf and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm just an artist, Black artist, and you know, trying to tell the story of a young Black person in America through my music.
Nah, and I think you did that expertly. Like I keep saying that. I'm gonna say it probably multiple times throughout this interview, to be completely honest. But I want
Well,
people to kind of really just get a sense of you and who you are, especially as the collective that you kind of move around with too. So can you tell us where Sam Houston really came from, and then why you pivoted into Black Odyssey as well?
yeah, for sure. It's a funny story. I was just talking about it last night. You know, when I moved to Texas, so I graduated high school in 2015, and then I moved to Texas from New Jersey. This was sort of my like pivot into the music career and me starting to launch my music career on an actual level. So I came here and, you know, I thought to myself, first and foremost, I want to be able to like be different. I want to be like this East Coast kid that moved into Texas and just came in and kind of maneuvered through the scene and came up out of nowhere, which is actually what happened. But it sort of happened in the wrong way. I kind of came here and I disregarded everything that I learned as a musician growing up and just looked at what was working out of Austin, which was like, you know, like Gary Clark Jr., which is sort of like Americana kind of
Yep.
music. And, he's super dope, but not really who I was as an artist. But being that I saw, you know, that's what's working here, like I'm gonna try to emulate that and base my career off of like, yo, let me come to Austin, let me throw on the hat, let me, you know, throw on the boots and be that black, like that black, you know, Americana artist. And, you know, it started to work a little bit. Like we started to get some touring notoriety in that vein, but truly it just wasn't who I was as an artist. Sam Houston was some shit that came about kind of just like trying to figure out the right name. My name is Juwan, and that's like a very it's a black name. So I was just wondering, like, is this gonna be like something that's gonna be challenging for me? And that's like one of those things that we face as Black Americans. I'm like, are we commercial enough? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was
So
gonna say, like, that's a very real thing. Like, yo, how is
yeah,
my name, just my name alone, like, how is that going to be perceived and digested? And is it digestible for everybody? So it's
exactly.
even cool to really hear you really talk about the one, like what it was like trying to find your identity, like what I'm hearing, and then
Yeah,
also like, all right, well, what works in Austin right
yeah,
now? And if that's
exactly.
not the authentic to you, you're like, yeah, this shit's whack. Like this is not for me. It works for those people who are there, but for you to come into this space and adopt that, but also recognize like, yo, actually, this is different. I think thank you for adding that part of the story. Like, I think that's dope on your journey.
For sure, bro. I mean, and you know, like I like battled with it. You know what I'm saying? And it hit me for the first time when this lady came up to me at a show in Austin. Sam Houston is like a Texas war hero, I guess. Like I haven't done much research on it. I know the nigga was racist, but
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? Like he was like the president of Texas when it's seceded from the rest of the nation and shit. So what kind of like, you know, ended it all for me and made me realize like, yo, I gotta stray away from all of this and be who I am is when this lady came up to me after I played and she was like, yo, is your real name Sam Houston? It was a white lady. She's like, is your real name Sam Houston? And I was like, nah. And she was like, oh, well, I mean, yeah, I was just asking, you know, it could have been. And I was like, okay. And like, she looked like she was wanting to say something, but didn't want to say it. So I'm just looking at her and I'm like, what? Like,
Hey,
what
what
are
you
you
gotta
talking about?
say?
Yeah. And she was like, well, you could have like, you know, been like a descendant of a slave of his or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I need these motherfuckers to stop calling me Sam, you know, because
Yeah.
that's, you know, just that in itself. And she was ignorant about it. Like she thought that was okay to say, but like, you know, right in that moment, I was like, yeah, I need y'all to not like, not, you know,
Make that
mistake
association
me. Yeah,
anymore.
make that
Yeah.
as not only make that association, but think that they could approach me as if I'm like one of these brothers out here that's gonna be like, oh well, man, you know, I'm like, no, I'm not nobody's slave. Like, I'm a strong Black man. And matter of fact, I'm about to get in front of this crowd of white people and pretty much tell y'all about yourselves. So I just like that's when I like took off the wide brim fedoras and I stopped wearing the boots and I started replacing it with things that are more true to my culture. I started putting on the braids. I started wearing more African colors. And in a scene where like it's very white, to be honest, that was my moment where I felt like, you know what, I'm gonna go against the grain. I'm not gonna try to do what the other Black artists are doing here. I'm gonna try to bring more Black people together in this community where Black people don't really band together. And yeah, starts to work. We started to get notoriety as like some of the best music that's in the live music capital of the world, Austin, Texas. And we just got on the cover of one of the major publications out of here, the Austin Chronicle, just for being like us. Like we really were playing it on being us and talking about what's true to our culture, which I don't think has happened out of Austin. So that's why this city has kind of been a booster for us. They're really getting behind it.
That's a fact. And then I'll just jump down to it since you brought up like the Austin Chronicle as well. Like, yo, what was that like to have them on your back? Because I saw on one of your Instagram posts, you were just like, yo, it's dope to like sit down with this person to be able to talk about that, but also be named like a leader like in your community. So what was that kind of moment like for you?
It's a blessing, bro, because like as a Black artist, my prerogative has always been like, yo, I want to be able to be put on a platform, not to have fans. Like, I don't give a fuck about fans. I'm not like an artist that's gonna be like, yo, my fans this, my fans that. Like, that's never gonna be even in my vocabulary. I wanted to create something that's gonna unify people. And I want to continue to create things that are gonna unify people and make people feel like they're a part of something that is bigger than them. Because that's what I spoke about on the story. Mm-hmm. The journey of the Black Odyssey is way bigger than Juwan. Like, it's way bigger than anybody involved. It's like Marvin Gaye, what's going on? It's like Curtis Mayfield in the 70s. It's like or the early 60s. It's like this revolution that's coming back together of Black people beginning to take back what we have earned in this country and beginning to value ourselves, but value what we bring to this country, and understand our value, which is, to me, 99% of the issue. Like, we don't understand our value and we don't understand what we bring to the table, and we devalue each other. So Black Vintage and the Black Odyssey project in general, not to say that it's pigeonholed in only music that speaks about, civil rights and stuff like that. But, that is one of the main things with my story of like how, what gets me up in the morning and what makes me want to create. I want to bring people together so that they understand the value and understand the power of community and like what we could do together. Like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can go on and on about it, bro, but yeah, that's
facts.
It means a lot that they put me in that position.
And I think it's dope though. And I think it's important because I'm like excited, like just listening you talk about that experience, because it is something where, like, even for me as an activist out here, it's knowing that people have to come together for something that's bigger than themselves. So like hearing you say that, you're using music as a vehicle to do that. I might use my podcast. Some people might use food. Some people might use school. People have their own thing. But when a community is able to buy into a larger idea, it's so much easier for me to buy into whatever you are selling. Like, to me, what you're not even like what you're selling, but also like what you're presenting to the world. And I think that's important because artists today, they'll put out like let me put out a political record. But that's because at some point last year, it was real sexy to put out like a political record that didn't have substance to it. I'm not saying like A Seat at the Table, an amazing political record. To Pimp a Butterfly, an amazing political record. Lemonade, an amazing political film when you think about it in its totality. Like, I'm thinking about stuff like that where I'm just like, it's not gimmicky because you're also allowed to put not only like a larger context of what's going on, but you put your personal into it, which I think is dope. Because I think, man, to me, you were on some James Baldwin kind of stuff going on when you put together like Ghost Ride and 1980, like as a video together. I said, like, to me, it was one of the most brilliant things that somebody could have done that you did when you put those visuals together, because it took like a macro idea and then you were able to zone it in on yourself and your personal story. And to me, I'm just like, nah, this shit's genius. Like,
yeah, bro. Bro. I really appreciate that you noticed that, because the songs are actually the opposite of each other, and it's speaking about like the Black mindset from two different perspectives.
yeah,
And in 1980, I'm like really talking about like when we were selling and like how we kind of just lived in that braggadocious, like careless mindset. And then on the other end of the project, when Ghost Rider hits, is speaking from an external, perspective. Like, in 1980, I say it's 9:30 and the sun is out. My shirt matching with my shades, black melanated skin is out. I'm sort of like being braggadocious and speaking about my possessions. But in the second verse of Ghost Rider, it says, "Niggas and hoes, kill all your folks. Tip on your toes through the back door, blood on the walls. Shackles and chains is one and the same as shoes and clothes." Saying that all those things that I possess are no different than the chains and shackles that they had us in 400 years ago. It changed the matter of what it was. But those are still white people that own those things, and we are still giving them everything we have to have that. So I'm just kind of in 1980 and Ghost Rider speaking from two different perspectives on the same topic, which is like a theme throughout the record. Like I really wanted to touch on it from an internal position to let people know, like, this is how we live and this is what we're doing. We're selling on the corner. I was posting on the boulevard. I'm saying I'm getting money, I'm getting clothes. And then I want to speak about it from like the perspective of a more like seasoned and understanding and woke, if you will, person. So that's why those videos were put together. It was actually my managers I did. But.
Oh, that's fire. Yeah, because I'm sitting there, I'm watching, I'm just like, nah, this is dope. Even how you visually did it. Like to me, when you were just speaking in the beginning of the video, the first half, which I think is Ghost Ride, is the first half. Yeah. It's just you. Like I don't see anybody else. It's just you in the car, on top of the car, like going through and whatever. But then in the second half, when 1980 kicks in, then it's you and your boys at the same time. And I was like, yo, this is dope, because this is like you speaking in academic terms too, like you speaking to the greater idea, the theoretical aspect of it. And you said, now let's bring that back to how this manifested in my life as well, which fire. That's all I can say. Like,
thank you, bro.
Yeah. And so I think like something that you keep touching on too is just being able to, like, even thematically throughout this project, you're able to speak to something larger than yourself, but you found a perfect balance of putting in together like your personal with the overarching ideas that Black people face as a whole. And I think it was dope when you put something like Hang Low into the project as well. Yeah. And so can you talk about the intent with putting something like Hang Low, where you're talking about love and relationships and Black women and their bodies? Like, what was like the intent behind that, John? Because I was like, this fire. Like,
damn, I like this interview, bro, because you actually know what it's about already, like Black women and their bodies and shit.
Yeah.
Hang Low was one of those songs where I needed to make the project human. And it's just like heavily influenced by what I came up on. And I didn't want people to like look at this project as like, oh, it's just a political project and it's like about that and that only. This was literally like the Black journey, like what we see life as when we are Black people, and not just about our, trials and tribulations. It's about our triumphs too, and like, just what we deal with in general. Hang Low, is like about glorifying Black women. And I feel like Black women, this is no like, I mean, it's just a fact. Like they're the most like underrated in society and looked down upon. And the darker you are, the more that they think that you're unattractive. And I really, really want to, in this project, especially in the visuals, to reverse that rhetoric and that stigma, because it's so not true. Like like some of the most beautiful women in the world are dark-skinned women, and I I really wanted to personify that in this track. So in Hang Low, it's just using a bunch of terms of endearment throughout the whole record. And like I remember I showed my mom the track, and on the chorus it says, "And them titties, hang low." And my mom was like, "That's disgusting. What are you talking about?" And you know, it was just my way of like talking about natural bodies and women that have had babies and stuff, and the breasts that are not all up perky, but just a body that's been through life. You know what I'm saying? And I really took like inspiration from Andre 3000 on that sort of phrase. And like, he used to use these very like visceral terms and funny ways of explaining things. Sweet like lemonade, blood drips from hair veins. And then the second part of it says, skin like marmalade, puts voodoo in my brain. I just like, those terms when we were in the studio and we were coming up with them, like it just felt right. And it felt like a very like broad way to explain it, and very like detailed and visual almost way to explain it, which is what I like in music, when it almost like you could listen to it and you can almost see it. So
yeah,
that's like kind of what we were figuring. And, you know, like I said, we took a lot of like Outkast influence and D'Angelo influence on that track. And it was grooving, so we threw it on the record, man. And joints like that and Funkentology are the ones that are kind of more like, whenever you ask about Funkentology, I can tell you about that one too. But like, those are the more human records on it, like to explain like, yo, this is like what we see as people.
No, well, get into Funkentology as well. Like, get into that. Like, what was the essence of that? Because I'm just like, between that and then even beyond just like the audio aspect of it, I feel like you even did that when you put Murda out as the visual, and like you were centering the Black woman dancing. And I'm just like, bruh, like everything that you're talking about throughout this project, you managed to still take an idea from Hang Low and still center a Black woman in the Murda video at the same time. So to me, I'm just like, you're still connecting the pieces, even though the song may be completely separate from what the other track was talking about.
I fuck with you, bro.
I'm telling you, I was a theater major, so like the fact that you do like theater of the mind and the visual aspect, I was like, yo, this is amazing to me.
Bless, bro. I'm really glad that it came together, and that it makes me very happy that you were able to see it. Funkentology, man, is like, it actually talks about sexual addiction. And throughout the record, it uses like a crackhead as a simile. And it starts off by saying, put it in my veins, it makes me go insane. She's so good, it's pink like lemonade. So those two lines is like to set the tone, like, put it in my veins, it makes me go insane. It's obviously talking about heroin. And then when I say she's so good, she's pink like lemonade, it's obviously talking about a vagina.
Yeah, I was like, I thought Pink Matter right away with Andre.
And that was the exact inspiration. Like, I'm a huge Frank Ocean fan, huge Andre 3000 fan, and I had listened to that song for the first time when I was like freshman in high school. And then I started doing research on like, what is pink cotton candy Majin Buu? Like, what does that mean?
Fire.
And then I was like, oh, he's talking. I was like, genius. So
fire.
I can't even say that I came up with that concept. Like that's something that came directly from Frank Ocean. And I just used pink lemonade as like my metaphor. But yeah. And then it goes into like the whole like sort of Kendrick sort of like, and I'm never like ever gonna like sit here on any interview in front as to like where I get my inspiration from, because that's bullshit. But like, I listen to Kendrick's background vocals and how he does it and knows where he gets it from and stuff like that. So when it comes to the whole what the bang, that's really Kendrick influence, Outkast influence, more than anything is Parliament Funkadelic influence, how they used to do their background vocals. And it's just like using that as like that almost like vocal tone was like sort of used to like you could hear like the desperation, the fiend in it. You know what I'm saying? So I guess the part that really like explains the song the most is during the bridge when you hear the low voice and then you hear the sort of crackhead voice come in and just a little off the top, you know me from the block. And, it kind of just like speaking about or speaking to like that desperation that niggas have when they are attached to the vagina, you know what I'm saying? And how it's almost like a drug. And I, face like sexual addiction and even like to keep it 3,000, like porn addiction and shit, just not being able to like stop watching that shit ever. So like, that's what that song sort of talks about, like the sexualizing of the brain, especially in the Black community, how we first came upon that and how it's like, like that level of like pornography and like sexualization, especially at a young age, is like desexualizing to the young man, and how it makes like the sexual experience like less desirable. And in the Bible, it talks about how the sexual experience is supposed to be something beautiful between two people that love each other, and how that like was, almost desensitized with like how we treat sex nowadays. So that's what Funkentology was about. And it really speaks about it from not an external perspective, speaking about it like how Andre 3000's Vibrate speaks. It's not from that perspective. Yeah, facts, man. It's like, it's from the internal perspective. Like Andre was kind of looking down and pointing out that. And now I was like, let me create like a song that's in that perspective. And it's like, damn, I'm in the thick of it. Like I am that person that he's talking about. And that was great for me, like to be able to do that. So yeah, that's what Funkentology is about.
Nah, and it's dope. Like as you're like talking about it, I'm just thinking about how you really, you knocked this joint out the park. Because as you were talking, I had this realization. I said, this is really just like the tension between like the external forces that us as Black people have to deal with, whether it's material, whether it's relational, whether it's power dynamics, whether it's anything. And so to me, I'm just like, nah, this, like, just listening to you talk about that even more just gave me like a larger appreciation for this, because I just gained something new from it by just listening to you talk about it. Man, you're freaking brilliant. I'm gonna be
Nice, man. Thank you so much.
In fact, you said, what are you, 24? You're turning 25?
Yeah, 24.
24? Yeah, I'm 25. So I'm just like, once again, I'm like, nah, you're dope. Like,
it's good to connect, bro. It's definitely good to connect with young people that like just understand. I mean, art and media is like when you have people that think at a higher level and we come together and we create content like this for people to just like think a little bit different, man, that's what has inspired me as an artist. And if we could just get all of our people to come together and consume stuff like this, and create more stuff like this, like, bro, and create self-sufficiency, like our own Black channels and shit, where we could just live off of what we create, which is what every other culture does, bro. We'd be good, man.
Yeah, because you're really making me think about, because it's like this big conversation right now. This is a quick aside, to be honest, but it's like this conversation right now, like the Black dollar only stays within our community for 6 hours. And to me, that's wild. Like, what? Other communities stay in for like 20 weeks, 24 weeks, whatever the case may be, but ours is
6 hours, man.
Gone. Like that to me is like wild to even think about.
Facts, bro.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But I appreciate you talking to you and hearing like we can also align in the space of like, nah, we need our own stuff. Like even if you look at the shirt, it's Black books, Black films, Black music, Black art. Like that's what we need more of. But to me, I'm just like, I appreciate hearing you talk about like what it was like in the studio as you put these records together too. To hear that your manager had influence in one of these pieces, and like in terms of what should we put together in terms of a visual component, what songs go together. And even I can't remember if it was your Austin Chronicle interview, but you talked about including Black women into these spaces as well to really start getting those narratives a little bit. And to me, I was like, that's really dope, because now you're not only just talking about the subject matter, but you're allowing them into the space. So can you talk about like this idea of collaboration that puts you together with this entire Black Odyssey, Black Vintage project. Can you talk about like
Yeah.
what that was like in the studio?
One of the most prominent like vocals on the record, from like a female perspective, is Emma Soul, who's actually my sister-in-law, my brother, and her and my brother are together. And she was one of my favorite artists that I came across in Austin. And, you know, when looking at female singers in R&B today, I feel like so many of them are like doing the same thing almost. No disrespect at all when I say that, but
No, there's a formula to it in some regards. Like, how can we put
yeah,
this sound out specifically?
exactly,
Yeah.
man. And we're working on her record as we speak, and it's going to be another one of those records that is just like, well, what is this?
Right.
And what I loved about her stuff when I first heard her voice and like, you know, her influences, that it was like a modern day like Billie Holiday or Nina Simone, you know what I'm saying? And it wasn't like the super like airy vocals that we hear from all of the artists and stuff like that. It was, you could hear the pain in it. She has a very interesting story. She has a very vibrant story that stems from a lot of pain as well. And, you know, I think that in music, that's one of the most beautiful things that you can come across. So it behooved me to like use her as much as I could in this album, because her story in general, like really, really like represented what I wanted the Black woman story to be at the forefront of. I didn't want it to be like this whole sexy thing, like blah, blah, blah. I wanted it to be like, yo, this is like real Black women shit. Like this is really what they deal with. And yeah, like she's on Ghost Ride. She's on Drinking Good. She's singing that bridge on Drinking Good.
Also, I appreciate you just including bridges like in your
yeah.
Just a very little thing, but I said, nah,
Yeah.
I missed that in music.
Structure, bro. Structure. It's gotta be there, man. Facts. Nah, she's on that. And she's on. She's obviously the vocalist on Big Bad Wolf.
Yep.
I'm on the second half in the sober section, and yeah, she's just, you know, an amazing artist, and I wanted to have her on the record as much because I'm producing her next record. I produced all the Black Vintage, and I'm producing her next record. And I wanted, like, as this record grows, I wanted people to be like, yo, who is that singing? So when they hear her stuff come out, and it's almost like you could tell it came from the same camp. I'm sure I want to build like a legion of Black artists that are doing conscious folk music. So yeah, and then you have a girl named Nettie that is on the interlude Black Revolution, who's just sort of doing spoken word. And she's actually in a rock band here in Austin called Trouble in the Streets.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
dope.
Super dope. Yeah, it's like super like, yeah, it's cool as hell. So I saw her play for the first time in like 2017, and like the band was doing like just heavy riffing and stuff, and she was kind of just up there preaching. Like she was not singing, she wasn't really like rapping, she was just talking. But it wasn't like regular, like, you know how when people like break down and talk to the crowd, like she wasn't doing that. Like she was like preaching to the crowd. Like it felt like I was like Maya Angelou. Like it felt like it felt like someone was standing in front of a crowd at a civil rights like activist rally and speaking and getting people riled up. And I never forgot how I felt when I saw her doing that. And I was like, damn. So when I came to conceiving this record and we were finishing up and we were like, yo, we need more interludes, we kind of came across this, like the band, we were in the studio. Well, actually, I was just at the crib, actually, just doing some bass lines and stuff. And I'm a huge fan of like Isaac Hayes and the Shaft soundtrack and all that blaxploitation kind of realm of music. So I was kind of messing with that kind of groove. And then I brought it to the band the next day and let them kind of get off on it. And we had two guitar players in the room. We had a bass player, Matt Weatherly, Matt Muling, Alejandro Rios, and Adam Jackson on drums. and my man Dane Relaford on keys. And, you know, the lights were low in the studio, and we just light some incense, and just kind of like started grooving on that kind of like 70s like movie score funk.
Yeah.
And we did it, and then we did like a Fela Kuti kind of vibe. And then I had her do like the vocals on the Fela Kuti kind of vibe first. And it didn't really like, it was cool, but it didn't feel like a man on the side of the corner with the microphone standing on the milk crate preaching. That's what I kind of visualized when I seen it. So I just took the vocal and threw it over that, and I was like, oh yeah. Then I took some vocals that from a song I produced that hasn't come out yet. One of my homies, his name is Harry Adokwa, and he has it on a track called Zombies. That's gonna come out. It's fire. And I hit him up and I was like, yo, can I sample these vocals on one of my tracks on my album? And that's the girl vocals that you hear. And it's saying,
snap.
Yeah, it's an artist, a young artist. She's like 18 in Austin. Her name is Mo. And she it's saying like the reason for your being. And the song Zombies is about like Black people in the music industry and how like white culture has like sucked us out of it, or sucked everything from us, like into their profit. And that song like just really speaks to that. And there's a moment where the background vocals say, you know, we're the reason for your being. So I took that and put it in the record and sampled it. So you gotta look out for that one. It's gonna be crazy. I'll send it to you. And yeah, like that was like for me like a great way to personify like Black women in this album. So yeah.
No, I think you did an immaculate job, especially just coming from a man's perspective as well. Like, I think you were able to give like a very informed space, a very honest space, but then also one that pushed this humanity as well. And I think we've been seeing this kind of conversation happen a little bit more, which I think is like super timely when you think about Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, Serena Williams, and them just like, it's giving mental health. Like, I'm gonna be taking that first and foremost. But we're able to start recognizing like, yo, these Black women need some more. And I got a piece of content coming out later talking about like Deisha Filia's The Secret Life of Church Ladies and Jasmine Sullivan's Hotels, but how they use short stories essentially to create more complex Black women and give them permission to be complex when you look at how they built these Jones out. So that's why I appreciate it. Like, as you were talking, I said, yes, that's important that we get to see. Here's there's prim and polished and like what we expect out of Black women, but then also here's the reality of like those that we're actually in community with, and this is the difference of what we see. And so I think, yo, fucking brilliant. Like, again, like you found that tension, you put that in the music, hearing you talk about these collaborations and like where you found your inspiration from. Bruh.
That's love, man.
Sitting here like just in awe, because I just appreciate an artist who is an artist through and through. And to me, like, as when this record was released, we're thinking about all these big ass records that are dropping and whatever. And I said, nah, this is probably my album of the year so far. Like,
thank you, bro.
And that is yes.
It's
like
I to get through the noise, bro, with Drake and Ye, and it's hard, and it's been hard, bro. Like as an artist, this is our first music ever released. And we've been playing for a while and gained notoriety as like this live band that's doing like rock stuff. But this is like a whole shift. So it's been like a process to start over.
Right.
And what I hope is that like the record is just able to like wait for all the noise to be done and then still be standing there. And like people like say, well, why don't I go listen to that? And we were real intentional with the cover art. I don't know if you want us to talk about that now. Or
I was gonna wait to talk about that because I said yes, get into it.
Let's wait.
No. We can get right into it because I appreciated the cover art. That's what got me to look at the album for real. And then I realized, like, as I was reading one of your interviews, you said, yeah, that's not me. I'm not centering myself like in this at all. So to me, I'm just like, nah, this again, to me, it's as meticulous as like a Solange project, which to me is like always like a Black Mirror episode. So I have to go back and rewatch it and re-listen so I can gain something new out of it every single time. And to me, I think your project does stuff like that because now, oh wait, let me actually, what was he referencing here? Oh, let me try this again. Like I get to engage with your music so much differently. So please get into like the cover art and like the inspiration behind that.
Well, it's an African artist who's in, I believe he's in Lagos. His name is Fritz. And I saw a piece online that he did. And I reached out to him and I was like, man, this, you know, he's actually got a really big following. So I was just surprised that he like answered. But I looked at it and I said, man, this really, really, if we like tuned it a little bit and brought it together, it really represents one of the songs in the album very well. And that song ended up being Ghostwriting. I'll explain how. But I talked to him about like the picture for a while. And we just spoke about like what it meant to him. And it was like, yo, because we had gone through so many different artists of like, all right, what is the cover? I know I don't want it to be me. I want it to be like a piece of art. And we had even paid like an artist that just didn't deliver. Like we paid a different African artist and she just didn't come through. Like she sent something that was super whack and we was like, what is this? And we were out of money. Like we had no budget left for art. So I just reached out to dude and I'm like, look, bro, I don't have much. Here's the album. This is what it means to me. And it was funny because it was like an omen, bro. Like it was like meant to be. And he's like, yo, my inspiration behind this picture was like having people around you like drowning and watching the people around you and our brothers like not being able to help themselves. And I was like, yo, that's insane because in Ghost Ride, there's a line in the first verse that says, why is it so that the world doesn't know that all of my brothers are drowning slow? And if you look at the album cover, it's multiple hands around somebody that's standing in the middle and watching everyone like drown around him. And the fact that like that came together with somebody across the world, I was like, bro, we have to have this as the album cover. So we took it and we edited it a bit so it looked a little bit more vintage and a little bit of a more classic feel to it. And that's how the album cover came together. And it proved to have been like one of the leading factors in like you said, like what makes people like open it in the first place. Cause it could have been a picture of my fucking face and shit, but like who gives a fuck about like that? You know what I'm saying? I don't really care about that. So, you know, I was just like, we need to have something that when people open it or when you see it on a vinyl, it's like, I need to listen to that because it looks like something that is a story. And that's what I wanted it to be. So yeah, that's how the album cover came about.
You did a damn good job. All right.
Bless.
Yeah. And I guess like my last official like interview question is really just referencing like you also took it beyond just the Black American experience as well. And you keep talking about like thinking about our roots as a people and stuff like that too. And reaching out to African artists as well. But then also like even in the Murder video, like you took Afro beats and you expanded that even more. And even the Black woman in there is like, to me, I'm just like, oh, those are very African patterns. Like this is super dope to me. So what did it mean to you to go from, this can be a very unique Black American experience, but you even expanded it to just an overall, like a Blackness across the diaspora kind of experience. Was that intentional? You wanted to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason behind it was because from like an early age, as Black people, we're taught that the beginning of our history starts in slavery, which is just not true. Like we come from so much more than shackles and chains. We come from so much more than picking in cotton fields. And right when the pandemic hit, which was when most of this record, I would say 98% of it was conceived during the pandemic, I was watching the whole George Floyd situation and watching all of this stuff that was going on in this country. And I was like, I want to know more about my heritage from a music perspective. And if I was a historian, I would be looking at it from a historic perspective. And
Yeah.
if I was an athlete, I would be looking at it from an athletic perspective. But I'm in music, so I wanted to know more about our stuff from a musical perspective. And then obviously when I was looking at that, I came across Fela Kuti. And I really like just dove into what he was speaking about. And I came across just like these different rhythms, and I was like, all right, let me translate that to some digital stuff. And just I came up with the bass line, dum, 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 boom, dum, dum, and it just felt like war rhythms. It just felt like, you know, something that Fela would have did. So I spoke about like police brutality in that, because the whole thing in Lagos was going on with the whole SARS thing, with how that was going on in Africa. And I don't know. I just, obviously I had a brother that was killed by police in 2010. So police brutality has always been something that like I spoke about in my music. So when I was hearing those rhythms, I was just, like, and this makes me like, it makes me feel like I'm running from the police when I listen to it. So that's kind of the visual that I had in my head when we were making the song. And, I wanted to feel like I was running the whole time. So we kept that bass line going. Doom, boom, doom, boom, doom, doom, doom. And the kick is kind of like constantly like a heartbeat, because you like your heart is racing when you're running from the police. So it's just, and I kept that constant because I wanted to keep the tension in the song the whole time. And yeah, I mean, it's just it's what in the section in the project when we begin to like start to see that turnaround, and we're not a victim anymore. We're victims, and we're like, yo, we're not gonna keep running from you. Like, we're not gonna keep standing for this. And this is right before Black Revolution, where we make the statement of, Black is the new gold, and we're not gonna be plastered on your timelines and hashtags anymore. Like we are like the new gold. And my boy, when I was playing it, my boy Harry, who I was telling you has the record Zombies.
Yeah.
He heard it, and I was like having trouble with the lyrics. And he was like, fuck it, like shoot who's shooting at you, like shoot who's shooting, and duck and reload. And we're like, I'm looking at him, I'm like, oh, we gonna come like that? He helped me write that record, and he was like, yeah, we gonna come like that. Like,
come
if
on,
they shooting at us, we're gonna shoot back.
So by any means necessary, for real.
Right? Come on, brother, you already know, man.
You already know.
That's like when he took that direction. I had the second verse and the chorus already done, and he was like, yeah, let's come like that. And it really put that into perspective. And I was like, yeah, matter of fact, like that is how we feel. So it also uses a phrase that was coined in the Bantu language, Bumbaye. And originally when in the Ali fight, Muhammad Ali, they were screaming Ali Bumbaye, which means kill him. So I used that as a moniker in the track. And it says, fire. Tell him Bumbaye, which means kill him. And also like throughout the song, it's just screaming murder. It chants murder, murder. And then at the end of the song, it references Exodus, which is like by definition, a group of people, a huge group of people migrating. But in this context, it meant like a huge group of people coming together. And I even tied it to like, biblical sense, because I reference Exodus a good amount in the project, like on the opening track. I reference Exodus 1-7. And, really Exodus is like in the Bible about Moses freeing his people and stuff like that. So I reference that a lot in the track, and, references and reference it in the first track. And then I reference it in, the murder track, because it's sort of like a theme of the album. Exodus is pretty prevalent throughout the record. So yeah.
Facts. Nah, and I appreciate you and thank you for like explaining all of that too. I think that's so important to kind of know a little bit more around like, yo, how was this conceived? Like, what was that process like? What was I actually trying to do? Like, bruh, talking about like what the instruments were supposed to be doing, and also like the chants that are going on, and then also just thematically what you were playing with the entire project. Like I said, to me, you're an artist. I can't wait for the world to catch up to you, and really start figuring out like, yo, you're doing this shit, but then also seeing where this collective that you want to build go out to. Like, I think you're doing something that's super intentional. It's something that everybody, even as Black folk across the diaspora, can really get into and get behind. Like,
I'm hoping so, bro. I'm hoping so, man.
Look, you got time, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Like, that's super dope. So I just want to say, like, I'm appreciative of you even taking time out to have this interview. Bro, like, just wild proud of you. Like, that's cool.
Thank you, man. It was great.
Most def. Last but not least, like, one, tell the people who you are and like where they can find you, but then also like what is your hope for people to get out of this project overall? So you can answer that in whatever order you want. I just was like, I need to get these out.
Black Odyssey is the Black Odyssey is the name of the project, and it is a group that we don't sell music. We put culture at the forefront, and we are delivering, culture to people. For those who may not understand our culture, there's so many different ways in the record, and anything that we do, our live shows as well, there's so many different ways that it is articulated so that people can understand like the trials and tribulations and why we may come off ignorant to you sometimes, or why we may come off scary. And it tells you our story from an internal perspective so that we can create more understanding with each other. Instagram is Black Odyssey, Twitter is Black Odyssey. Please keep up with us so we can continue to, create a community around what we're doing. And what we hope that everyone gets out the album is a feeling of belonging, and to know that there are things out there that are banding us together and bringing us together, and things that you can share with your folks and your friends and family that will continue to keep the race of like bringing us together and bringing self-sufficiency to the forefront, and just continuing to be proud of who we are as Black people. So that's what the Black Odyssey is about. The name of the band is the Black Odyssey, which simply means the Black journey. And man, appreciate you having me, man.
Ain't nothing but a word. I appreciate you. I am a forever fan now. Yes. Other than that, you already know what it is. This is your boy Marquise Davon. You can catch me across all social media at MarQuise Davon. Mostly find me in the Twitter streets. That's really where I live. Other than that, you already know what it is. I will say goodbye. See you later to niggas and niggas only. I appreciate y'all for tuning in and listening. Other than that, make sure to look out for the visual component, and then also the podcast version of this interview. I appreciate everybody who supported, and make sure that you go listen to Black Vintage. Like, when I tell you it is an experience, theater of the mind, whatever you want to call it, the John is fire. So please capture onto that and catch up, because Black Odyssey is doing it. Cool. All right, my guy.
You out of there?